Great stuff. Hi, welcome to Inside Unsigned, the pilot episode of Inside Unsigned. We've got Matt and Steve from Counting Control, whose song The Fallen is the first to feature on the Rebel Death Spotify playlist, Grey Unsigned Heavy Metal. Over to you, Matt and Steve. Please introduce yourself.
Matt Lappin, and we reside in the northwest of England, in the Greater Manchester area, and I'm the bass player in Counting Control.
And my name's Steve Lewis. I also reside in the north of England, and I play guitar for Counting Control.
Before we crack on to find out a bit more about the band, I thought that it would be a good idea to do a nice icebreaker. And for that purpose, we've created what I like to call the bog roll of destiny.
Matt.
Start.
Scones or scones?
Ooh.
I think it's a scone. It's one of these, workplace dividing questions, isn't it? But I'm going to go for scone.
Right, Steve?
Okay, yep, stop.
Poppadoms?
Yes, please.
Okay. Right, Matt.
Start.
Line them up. What's your poison?
Jaeger bombs.
Nice.
Oh.
Nice.
Oh.
Oh. Steve?
Stop.
Oh, we've broken the bog roll of destiny.
Favourite chord?
Oh, yeah, good one.
Oh, I would say a suspended fourth chord. Any key, any key, or either that or a diminished chord.
Oh, we can do a bit where we play the chord. Let's get on to talking about the band.
Well, we were in two separate bands, and through the tape trading days, back in the late 80s, early 90s, discovered each other, swapped demo tapes, and decided we should meet up. And we really hit it off. We just had a right laugh, the load of us. And Rick joined Steve's band, The Run to Munch, for a while. Rick was the guitarist in the band I was in. And Rick stayed friends with you, didn't he, for quite a long time? I mean, I was still friends with him, but disappeared off and did this, that, and the other. And it just so happened that about 4 or 5 years ago, we'd worked out that there was a drummer, 2 guitarists, a bass player, and a vocalist. Well, 2 + 2 = 4, doesn't it? So we thought, for shits and giggles, a little bit like Dad's five-a-side football team, really. We thought we would actually start putting something together because I was getting a bit old to carry on playing five-a-side with 21-year-olds, so I needed something else to do. So when the idea was brought up, it was like, yeah, great idea. Steve?
Love it.
Yeah, so I mean, back in the day, obviously, we were doing quite a few gigs together after we met, and then kind of a bit like with yourselves when we started realising there was a bit of a sort of, a spiritual kind of, bond, similar sort of mindset. We've maintained contact over the years. When the band split up at the back end of the 90s, everybody just went off doing their own thing and, life kicks in. But we'd like, Matt said, Rick, the guitarist in Matt's band, moved over near us. We've all maintained contact anyway. Matt didn't really sort of play on that too much, but Matt was still on the scene with us. Weddings and stag do's and, occasions and things, we were still in touch. And it just, I think, what's happened over the last few years is as we're all getting to an age where we've all got kids and kids are getting maybe a little bit older and a little bit more independent, suddenly we've got a little bit more free time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, you just got to, we're all sort of in a position where we've got, still got equipment, maybe a little bit more disposable income, and you're looking for something to do with your time that's going to keep you, that doesn't involve going to prison or, ending up on a watch list or something. So we just kind of, through, I don't know, various things, people doing little bits of demos at home and stuff like that, it's like 50% of each band, really. So myself and Roz, the vocalist, are from Dawn to Mention, and Matt, Rick and Dave, which is bass, guitar and drums respectively, are from Matt's old band Paranormal Disposition, which they changed their name to Interminate. So yeah, it's just like two gangs from back in the day that used to gig together and play, and we've maintained contact and now formed this super group.
The name, Counting Control. So we did some due diligence, what with being hardcore journalists, and we found out what it was, but it'd probably be nicer to hear it from you. So it's quite.
So it might not be that.
It might not be that as well.
Yeah.
It might be a massive coincidence, but it's not what you would say is a kind of a conventional heavy metal band name like Rebel Death or
Sisters of Suffocation.
Sisters of Suffocation. It's quite highbrow, even I might say. Counting Control.
So do tell us about the band name.
Well, Matt, can you remember?
Yeah, we had struggles with trying to get a name, and it's Roz, the singer. He comes up with a lot of concepts, and he came up with the name of Counting Control, and it's basically to do with the number stations that were going around in the Cold War era, used prevalently by a band called the Boards of Canada, which we're all sort of fans of. It's more of a sort of trip hop EDM warp type band, but if you know them, they are the creepiest band known to man. I mean, forget early Emperor and Death Spell Omega and Gorguts or whatever. If you want to be really freaked out, you should listen to the Boards of Canada. And they used a lot of sound clips from number stations. So when I heard the idea, I thought, and it kind of rolls off the tongue as well.
Before we get on to talking about The Fallen, basically, because obviously I discovered you on Twitter, and I spotted the bio. I can't remember it verbatim, but it was something like 5 ugly northerners, lazy ugly northerners, who have taken, 4 years. I can probably put it up on screen, but for like 4 years to record 3 songs, and I was like, that appeals to me. I can get on board with that. But what else are you doing, and what's your mission, and where else can? And I'll put all the links in the description below. Where else can people find you and learn about you and hear you?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your kind words. I think the Twitter bio came from, again, this notorious WhatsApp group of ours. It's basically the kind of self-deprecating sense of humour that we have. I think it came from a few comments, quite a lot of them from Steve actually. So he does need to take quite a lot of credit for that bio. Steve and Rick and Roz come up with a lot of the sense of humour, and I just regurgitate it on Twitter. In terms of an end goal, there isn't one really. We would just like to get some more stuff out at some point. And if one person enjoys one of our songs, then that's great for me.
In terms of like promoting ourselves, so there's no real grand plan or anything like that, but there's other ways and means. There's like Facebook groups and and so forth, where you can simply just drop a link to a Spotify or like the playlist that you guys did, or a video on YouTube and stuff like that. So in general, that's kind of what we've been doing. And then DistroKid's another thing where you pay them a small fee, and they upload all your material onto various platforms. So we use that. I think you're aware of the sort of pace that we move at, guys, and it's just kind of, we don't want to get in front of ourselves, so yeah, that's kind of what we're doing really at the moment.
However, I would have to say, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd like to think it's that playlist that we've been doing with you guys, but our monthly listeners are somehow got right up. Woo! And it's like, all right, there's listeners there, there's listeners there. What's going on here?
Right. I think it's probably time we cracked onto The Fallen. I think if we could talk about your approach to writing stuff as a band or as individuals, and then perhaps talk about that song in particular, what it's about, where it came from. That'd be a nice thing to...
How it came to life.
That'd be a nice kind of direction to go in.
We tend to write quite individually. We'll put an idea out. What'll happen is, let's say I have an idea and the track is, 10 minutes long. We need to shorten that down to keep it interesting, don't we? It's not my idea, but hey, that's the other guy's ideas, and we together form these tracks. It goes out as a skeleton, and we all have our input into it. Although these songs do come to the party quite individually, they end up being a collaborative effort, especially from Rozzy's behalf, because he does write 90% of the lyrics, and he comes up with these concepts. I'll just put out a song and I'll just go, oh, it's about space. And then, Roz will can go, oh, okay, it's about space, and let's do something about that. So that generally is the, I don't know, what do you agree with that, Steve?
Yeah, again, it's, because we're all sort of at home doing our own thing to a degree. A lot of the stuff, it's either a section of a song or a song that's fully formed, and then, people chip ideas in or leads, or Roz comes in quite a bit on the arrangement, extend that part, and then I can put some lyrics here or whatever, vocals and then keyboard samples and, various things happen. The Fallen itself was actually an old song that Matt had written, Matt's side project Against All Life. What was the original title? Was it The Devil in the Detail, was it?
Yeah, The Devil's in the Detail. Yeah.
So I think that's on your SoundCloud, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's so you can hear like a 10-year-old version.
It is, yeah. It's about 10 years old.
It's quite bleak, minimal post-metal sort of style. It sounds a bit different now, doesn't it? So it, it's kind of.
It's completely mutated.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the devil in the devil in the detail. The song is actually really quite simple. But the skeleton of that track is there. Obviously, it's not the vocals out there. The keyboards in the chorus, that again is Roz. But today that song sat for about a good 10 years. I mean, to be honest, this song, that's The Devil Is in the Detail, was actually in this room where I came up with that track. Actually, I think I had a very old 6-string Aria Pro. I think I tuned it. God knows what tuning I used to do that. And I think I had a very the first Easy Drummer software, and I think I just come out with it. It just sort of absolutely fell out. But because that guitar was tuned so oddly, it took a long time for us to actually kind of work out what was actually played. And of course, it's got that keyboard. One massive difference in it is that sort of modern riff about 3/4 of the way through. I just felt that we needed something extra, and I just came out with that. It's really quite sort of a throwaway jam kind of riff, but it went in there, and I think it probably brought it up to date a little bit, probably made it a bit more metal than it being sort of more kind of alternative, which is kind of where it was really. It was sort of like a more alt metal type song track. This kind of like that sort of section there made it a little bit more modern. And of course, Steve did the fantastic guitar solo over it as well.
The guitar solo, that was one of my questions down below that I was going to get onto in a bit. It was one of the kind of standout bits. It's not like overtly flashy. It's like there's two kind of layered things happening, and I don't know, maybe syncopated or something. It's just really simple but beautiful kind of solo that works really well. So well done, Steve.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
How long did that take you to write? Did you when you had the rest of the track, was that added afterwards? Like, oh, we'll have the solo here, and then leave it to me, or was that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember with that one. I think probably Matt or somebody must have suggested it. Back then it was at a time when we were all early days really in terms of us jamming again, and I was really relearning, the guitar basically, and molds and arpeggios and scales and things. So I didn't want to do anything too sort of cheesy. And the technique that people have got these days, I mean, you can really set yourself up for a fall if you try and do something that's not within your capability. But with that, like you said, the layers of it, there's a complete, again, going back to the resources people have got, there's some just different effects. Wanted to use some strange voicings, just to give it a little bit more of almost like a synthetic sort of edge to it. So yeah, it was kind of written. What I tend to do is just with leads and with solos is just sort of just improvise a little bit and then pick out the bits that I like and then kind of learn it and then just like you said, just kind of write it and assemble it then, and that's what I did with that one. Yeah.
Taking it back a step then, just kind of, can you talk us through the software you use, the tech, like how do you record the guitars? How did you record everything basically,
So as you can see in the background, it's Logic that we use. Steve has got Logic, Rick has Logic as well. The drums were essentially the Andy Sneap Metal Machinery pack, the Superior Drummer one, with a bit of augmentation from one of the Stephen Slate drums to get that really sort of low snare. We really wanted that snare to be absolutely pounding on that song in certain sections and for it to be really big in the mix. The bass was, I've recorded the bass with I've flipped guitars left, right, and centre. So it was an Ibanez, quite a nice Ibanez bass that the bass was recorded on. Can't really remember the software. I think it might have been it might have been Amplitude what I used for the bass actually to get the guitar sound. That was generally all of the Helix, not the Helix native, but the Helix LT down there. But we use a lot of the third-party IRs, and the IRs that we used on that were free IRs, which were on the old Andy Sneap forum from absolutely years ago. They just sound like you are as close as and as near as, damn it, stood in front of an amp. I know there's a lot of the IRs now are great. They sound like they're perfectly mic'd up, etc. But these just sounded like, and they were actually, the story behind them is just they were made by this lad just testing out mics against different amps, and this is what came out. But they are actually very good IRs. The mastering, I think that was the Stephen Slate. I can't remember what that plugin, but the Stephen Slate mastering plugin, that's responsible for a lot of the volume in that track. So all the usual sort of suspects really. There's no sort of secrets in there at all, apart from maybe those IRs which have been floating around the internet since probably about 2005, I should imagine. Yeah.
I think an important thing with some of the IRs I've found is like some of the stuff, you know, that you've sent me, is that, you know, you can get a good guitar tone in isolation or a good bass tone or whatever it is, and then when you do the mix, everybody's kind of battling for the same place in the speaker, you know, so you think you've got a great lead tone or a rhythm tone, and then you listen to the mix and it's like, what happened, you know? And in particular when we're putting synths and synthesizers on some of the tracks and samples and vocals and things like that, if you use a lot of reverb, you know, a particular track, a particular component of the song can sound good in isolation, but then as soon as everything comes together in a mix, it just turns to mush because everybody's on the, you know, going for the same sort of frequencies. So I think sometimes it's worth, you know, you can listen to a mix of a track and then go back and change the IR, you know, change the speakers, change the cabs or whatever, and just keep trying. And it might be something that it surprises you, you know, when you listen to the thing in isolation, it doesn't sound so great, but when you actually drop it in on the track, you know, like going back to what we were saying earlier, Sean, I mean, my default sort of setting is more again, you know, entombed sort of, you know, Scott Burns sort of melt your face off, and Matt's always saying, no, you just turn the gain down, turn it, you know, less, and then suddenly you can hear it, you know, and it's still raw and it's still in your face, but it's, you know, it's music, you know, you can hear it rather than just sort of, you know, it's your speakers are melting kind of thing because you're just dialing everything up to the max, you know.
We didn't talk about the vocals at all, and I think on that song
It'd be good to know what it's about.
It would be good to know what the song's
Space,
about,
you said.
And it would be good to know, like, because there's different layers of vocals, like kind of detached vocal and then callback things happening.
He does. I mean, he does. He approaches his vocals. He does, like you said. There's a lot of layering going on, and a lot of sort of, you know. And he's quite unorthodox in terms of, you know, he doesn't necessarily look at things like a verse chorus sort of, you know, bridge. You know, if you look at some of the older stuff that we did years ago, he does. He just kind of follows his instinct and comes up with some pretty interesting, weird stuff. That particular vocal style as well. I know him, you know, he you know, he's of a certain age, so we say, and he as much as he's into the heavy stuff and he enjoys that, he found a particular pitch that he likes singing at, which still kind of, you know, gives it an energy, but he doesn't have to be sort of screaming all the time, you know, not all the time, you know, some of the time, you know, but not all the time, but he likes experimenting with different voicings, and, you know, he's got a virus synthesizer, he's got, you know, Roz is more sort of Pro Tools and stuff, but he knows all his software and his effects and things, and there's a lot of mapping out and a lot of architecture behind it, you know, really.
I think I get fallen as artificial intelligence, and it's they're taking over, and we are the fallen, you know, we are the ones that have been superseded, I think.
Well, chaps, I've really enjoyed speaking to you, meeting you and getting to know you in WhatsApp, on Twitter, and, you know, engaging with you, and hopefully we'll actually meet in person.
Yeah.
When all this madness is over.
Oh wait, happy birthday!
Oh
Steve.
yeah, happy birthday, Steve. You won't sing.
No. Work. Tried it. Yeah.
It's probably, you know, the birthday you always dreamed of. Talking to us idiots.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, guys. On a school night as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff, guys. Now we'll listen to The Fallen in its entirety.